Today I'm going to be discussing 15 woodworking tips and tricks that I wish I'd known earlier in my journey. It could have saved me a lot of time, effort and money. Hope you enjoy the video. Tip 10 was a game changer for me. If you get one good tip out of the video, do me a favour, hit the like button. It does a huge favour to small channels like mine. Thank you. Have you ever wondered why the end of your tape measure isn't fixed solid? The hook, or the tang as it's sometimes called, moves to ensure accurate measurements. I'm going to try and show you on this piece of wood. If this hook was fixed, and I'm going to simulate that by holding my finger on it and not letting it move, and we took a reading on this piece of wood, we're going to see it's 140 millimeters. By keeping my finger on the piece of wood but taking the reading from the outside edge, it's now 142 millimeters. So we have an inconsistency there because this piece of wood still measures 140 millimeters. That's why you get the movement in the tape measure. So now when I pull it and the movement's used, it reads accurately again at 140 millimeters. Whilst on the subject of tape measures, that brings me nicely on to tip 2. I try to always use the same tape measure throughout the whole project. If you're randomly using different tape measures that are around the shop and they're not calibrated together, you could find some inconsistencies in your cut lengths when it comes to assembly. Not all tape measures are created equally. Even a good quality brand could be out as much as 1/16 of an inch over a couple of feet. That's 1.5 millimeters over 60 centimeters. And a cheaper or older tape could be as much as 1/8 of an inch or 3 millimeters out over the same distance. That's quite a considerable amount. So you've made sure that you're using the same tape measure throughout the whole of the project, but you're still getting inaccuracies in your cuts. This could actually be down to the way that you're making the cuts. Let's go into that for tip number 3. Let's say we want to cut this piece of wood to 27 centimeters. We take a sharp pencil and we make our mark. Take our square and we mark our line. These two distances are quite similar and it would be easy to confuse which side we're going to keep. So I normally make a mark and that tells me that I'm cutting to this line. This is why it's important to know which side your waste is on. Some people just put across. So to try and demonstrate this simply, if I was to cut to this line like so and cut on the line, I'm going to lose about 1 millimeter of accuracy. My saw is unplugged, don't worry. So what I want to do, and this is why it's important to know which side is waste. So I've got this mark, I want to cut to this line and that's my waste mark there. I want to bring my piece of wood so that I'm just skimming the outside of the line. That will ensure that I've got a nice accurate cut and it's consistent throughout the build. If I follow this technique all the way through the build, then I'm going to be accurate on every cut. Stop blocks are an amazing way to get repeatable, consistent cuts. I don't have my stop block system in place yet, but I can still use the method and so can you. I'll show you how. So if I wanted to make this size cut over several pieces, what I can do is I can take a scrap piece of wood, position it and clamp it down, making sure that it's kind of square, and there we go. And I can make that, take that one off, come in, put my next cut in. This is one of the main reasons why I don't have doors on the front of these cupboards yet, so that I've got this system in place. I'm going to pop in here and respectfully ask that if you're enjoying the video, please hit the like button. It helps us out hugely. And if you have any tips of your own, put them in the comment section below. That also helps us, but it'll help everybody else that's reading the comments too. You've probably seen YouTubers making several passes on their cuts and wondered why. Well, it's because it tends to give a cleaner cut, but it also puts less strain on the motor, especially when cutting hardwoods. Why not give it a try? You might really like the results. If you're still getting poor cuts after that, then you've either got a dull blade or a gummed up blade and you've got pitch and resin on the carbide tips. So a clean and a sharpen if you've got the tools. If not, a new blade and you'll probably be on your way to much better cuts. When using a power drill, are you finding that you're snapping a lot of bits, especially the thinner ones? It's probably because you're not drilling straight. Use a square as a sight guide. It's a nice easy way to practice drilling straight. You will improve quickly and get to a point where you don't need it for the majority of your drilling. If you've ever unintentionally drilled all the way through a piece of wood, damaging an expensive part of a project, causing you possibly half an hour, an hour's worth of repairs, or worse still, having to replace an entire piece, then you'll know just how frustrating it is. A simple fix is a piece of tape, blue or green, wrapped around the drill bit, having done your measurement for your depth. It really is as simple as that, and it can save you a ton of stress. And for the next tip, while still on the subject of drilling, do you sometimes find that the bit will not go exactly where you want it and it will wander off of your mark? You've got two solutions really. First one is a wood bit with a sharp point. That works in the majority of situations. The second one is a punch. They're really cheap and they're really effective. So the next tip, another drill-like monster that's given me endless stress and heartache, is the impact driver. I've found myself screaming and swearing at this thing so many times it's not even funny. Having maliciously come off the screw head, driving itself into my workpiece, or scratching the surface, giving me loads more work doing a repair, or worse still again, having to replace the piece. Do yourself a favour, use one of these for finishing a project that you're using screws in, especially on expensive wood. It could save you so much stress. And on to the next tip, and I can honestly say this one's been a bit of a game changer for me recently. Previously, when doing end grain glue ups, I would add a dab of glue and then probably either use screws or dowels to add strength, because end grain glue ups can be notoriously weak. I watched a YouTuber and I can't remember who it was, but if I do, I'll put a link to their channel below. But they mentioned applying a liberal amount of glue, letting it dry, and then doing your glue up as normal. And it's supposedly going to give a much firmer hold. And I can honestly say that I have noticed that it definitely seems to be better. So that's been one of the most valuable tips I've learned recently. So another tip, and still on glue ups, if you haven't got a lot of clamps, or you need a way to hold two pieces of wood that are awkward, one way to do it is use super glue. I'll show you how. Another tip whilst we're on the subject of glue, specifically super glue, if you use these applicators for precision placement of super glue in your projects, you will know that the nozzles constantly clog and you end up having to cut away at the nozzles until after a couple of days you end up throwing the nozzle away and putting a new one on. A simple trick is to squirt a tiny bit of WD-40 through the nozzle every couple of days, and it almost completely eliminates any clogging. I haven't changed a nozzle in, well, weeks, since I actually found out about this tip actually. It's really, really good. You've just spent hours and hours meticulously making your best project yet. You've spent a long time applying the finish and getting it just right. You go back the next day when it's dry and it looks amazing, until you go to pick it up and it's stuck. The finish has pulled slightly at the bottom and it's stuck your masterpiece to your worktop. So I use these. I've created my own file and 3D printed them, but you can buy them really cheap. The way they work is they sit on your work surface and they hold your project up off of that. So any excess finish will just drip off and it won't stick. If you have a 3D printer and want the files of these for free, just put a comment in the section below and I'll get them to you. So my next tip is more about the environment than a woodworking tip itself, but this is my experience, and don't think I'm preaching because I'm absolutely not. But since being in the workshop full time, I started to get severe headaches when I went up home, and they would last a few hours, and I was constantly in a congested state. So I invested in the Spout air purifier and it has made a huge difference. So the tip would be, if you haven't got one, consider getting an air purifier. And my last tip is, if you buy an air purifier, they can be a little bit expensive to run because they clog up quite quickly. But I'm going to show you how to clean them for free, and I do mine every couple of days. So all I do is take the air hose, and it's as good as new. And then I do the same for the material filter. Last one does rely on you having an air hose, but if you don't have one, you can just give them a bang. They're not going to be as effective, but it will work. And I am aware that this air hose method isn't going to last forever, and there will be a point where that material just tears. If you're still watching, you're going to get a bonus tip as a thank you. Investing in a metal detector was one of the best investments I made. Working with pallet wood a lot meant I went through a lot of plainer thickness of blades. Now, knowing that I've got nails still in the wood, I can either cut around them or try and dig them out, and I don't have to keep replacing blades because I haven't hit one since I got this metal detector. I've put a link in the description below. This one is phenomenal. If you have watched this far, put "I saw the bonus tip" in the comment section so I know who the legends are. I'm going to link a video just about here which has some projects to build where you may be able to put some of these tips into practice.